If you're a trooper in the United States Armed Forces and you are currently serving in Afghanistan or Iraq, and you're engaged in possible CQB, that is close quarter battle situations, primarily urban combat like that which was encountered in Fallujah, I think you would be remiss if you did not have one of these types of blades on your person. And that is a fixed blade tactical knife. Now, there are different applications for different knives. What we're looking at here is a cold steel Kobun tanto knife, and it is definitely a fixed blade tactical knife, a lightweight one too, and I'll talk about that here in a second. I did talk about some of the philosophy of how I think these blades would apply to you as a trooper in my cold steel OSS review video. So a lot of the same thing applies to this. Now, that cold steel OSS video, in my opinion, it fits that application of CQB operations, maybe using a tech lock fastener like I talked about in the video, fastened to our lower right hip there on our belt so we can access it quickly. Has the advantage of that double-edged blade, which is wickedly sharp, and also that really long reach that the OSS is known for. So it's an excellent blade. However, just like with all designs, it has drawbacks. And one of the drawbacks of the OSS is its length when you're carrying it around. It will tend to get in the way. Especially if you're engaged in mounted operations like vehicles, maybe Humvees, Bradleys, Abrams, whatever you're doing. Now, I would still recommend going with a fixed blade if the propensity for you to get into hand-to-hand combat is high. If it's not, I would probably go with a folding tactical design. But if you're in a dangerous situation and you need a blade really quick, and that blade can save you or your buddy's life, a fixed blade is probably my choice in that situation. So this is the same category. This is again the cold steel Kobun tactical knife, and I'm going to talk to you about its specifics right now. One advantage it has over the OSS, actually has two major advantages over the OSS, and I'm talking about applying it in this situation. For civilians watching, it's still a great knife. There's ways to carry it. Of course, you'd conform to your local laws and regulations, whatever they may be. However, I'm primarily directing this to troops and carrying this in an open battle situation. The advantages of the Kobun would be its compactness. It's a lot smaller, and also it's even lighter than the OSS by a substantial margin. The Kobun, as it comes from cold steel, only weighs 6.8 ounces. And that's sheath and knife. That is amazing for a fixed blade tactical knife. That is amazing. And that's a very lightweight insurance policy to strap to your LBE and carry around and ready for deployment should you need it. Heaven forbid. Let's first start with the sheath in this review on the specifics. I really like the sheath on the Kobun. It's an excellent sheath. It's made out of their Securex plastic. It's just a thermal mold plastic, but it's excellent. It's really good. Shaped according to the blade. It's got the attaching rivets, so we can use 550 cord to attach it to our LBE. Personally, on this knife, I would go vertical, and actually have in my own military operations, vertical on my left non-gun side, hanging upside down. Now there's a belt strap for tucking into your belt. It's quick attach, quick release, has a nice retention clip on the bottom there so it won't pull out on you should you when you retract the blade, so that's nice. It will slide around a little bit in my experience because it does not lock onto the belt. It will attach to your belt. I wouldn't recommend using this attachment to a web belt necessarily. I don't think it's secure enough. However, for carry purposes in military operations, I would probably go vertical on my LBE, if indeed you are wearing LBE or MOLLE gear. Now, a downside to the sheath, as I got it, and from Cold Steel, is it wasn't retaining hard enough for me for vertical carry, and I'm talking about vertical upside down carry. So what I did is I drilled out the sheath. You can see my just a real tiny drill bit here and there. And then I took very heavy duty carpet thread and I stitched this portion of the sheath closed until I got the pinch that I was looking for. And then once you do that, take super glue and cover it on your thread. And that'll make it so it never unravels and it becomes rot proof. Now with that, the retention on the blade is perfect. It's not too strong, not too light, just like Goldilocks, just right. So good job on the sheath. I really like it. Doesn't all the things that I've talked about plastic sheaths before all apply to this one, and it's super lightweight and durable. Would I like to see a tech lock option on this? And yeah, I mean, you could do it if you want to. You could probably, I don't know if these screws match up with tech lock. I haven't matched it up. Haven't had a need to configure this one that way. There's always a way to do it. I would probably go with that rivet right there. If I had to drill, I would drill the second tech lock hole here, then I would zip tie the other side. And tech lock is that clasp that really locks it onto your web gear, and in that fashion it would be totally carryable on your web belt. And right there again, you could put it right on your right hip. I'm right-handed, so that would work. There's a lot to be said too for considering offside carry, because if your main hand is wounded, you might want to practice and train with your offhand with this knife, actually all knives. And so in that situation, for me, I would be putting it on my left hip. However, that's a training situation and a scenario which you'd have to practice for. Let's talk about the blade. The blade is, this particular Kobun I have is made out of AUS 8 steel. I have one out of 420 Sub-Zero quenched steel as well. I do prefer this AUS 8 one. It's not bead blasted like my 420 Kobun, but it is a better steel, and I think it's ideal for this application. I've had good luck with AUS 8. I have found, however, it will rust on you. You've got to keep a light coat of oil on it if you go into a humid environment. The blade as it comes from cold steel is sharp. However, it wasn't sharp enough for me. So, how you doing? I did sharpen it a little bit. I haven't touched this one up, so it's probably not awesome. I probably could use a little steel work, to be honest. However, the Kobuns are very sharp. Definitely sharp enough for the intended purpose. This is a tanto blade, just over 5 inches. I like the tanto style. I don't own a lot of them because I think it's a limited application blade, primarily for a defensive knife. Yes, it's got that great penetrating tip on it, and it's also reinforced because of the nature of the grind. So the tip is not weak, it penetrates well. The blade also has a sweep on it for some slash cuts, which is excellent. A little more difficult to sharpen. I will sharpen my Kobuns and all my tantos in a 2-stage process. I'll sharpen this edge, then I'll sharpen the front fascia on it. So great tanto tip. I'm sure there's lots of information around on that. I think it's an excellent defensive blade shape, actually. The finish on this one is actually Scotch Brite. It's sorry for the phone. It's not bad. I kind of wish it was a matte finish on this, but in a lot of ways it's good to have that bright finish, because when you bring it out, it's immediately noticeable, and that can have an intimidation factor, especially if you're carrying this as a civilian and maybe we don't even have to use a knife. That's always preferred. If I don't have to fire a shot, I much prefer that. So it's a medium reach, only 5-inch blade, so that's a downside. It doesn't have a long reach to it. However, for most of your backup operations, I think the 5-inch blade would serve you satisfactorily. Crossguard is a hit. I don't like the crossguard. I wish it was bigger. As we place our hands on there, it would be possible to come forward up and over that crossguard in a plunge cut. Be careful of that. By the way, if you do use this knife, hold it tight, because it is a very narrow handle. It's a Kraton covered handle, full tang design. But that is a trade-off of the weight. It's super lightweight, however it is a narrow handle, and it's somewhat short, especially for me. So if you do deploy the Kobun, hold it tight, practice with it, preferably with gloves, so you don't ever come forward and cut your hands. The balance and the speed of the blade are excellent. If you can get past the handle, it is an outstanding knife. I bought this one for $45 on clearance direct from Cold Steel, and it was a steal. No pun intended. So as an LBE combat operations knife, the Cold Steel Kobun is highly recommended by me, Nutnfancy, especially in a vertical carry mode. You won't beat it for the price and the weight. Thanks for watching. Good luck out there.